Hey everybody, it's Wednesday evening and I've had a busy day, so all we're going to have time to do is a simple water change on Butterbean's tank tonight. So I figured I'd go ahead and get the camera set up and we'll just go ahead and do a uninterrupted water change video. I'm going to apologize in advance for all the noisy splashing water you're hearing. I have to have the camera set up right next to my waterfall tank in order to get this on video. So I'm not going to be paying too much attention to the camera anyway. I'll try to chat and have any pointers I can make along the way, but otherwise I'm just going to get on with doing this water change. Now this is brackish water, so I do measure how much I take out. So that I can measure how much I put back in, and that way I can keep the specific gravity stable. What I'm doing here is just sucking up some of the old snail shells, getting them out of the tank. Any big chunks of cyanobacteria I see on the bottom like that, I'll go ahead and vac them out of there. But there's not too much to pull out this time. This is more or less just to get the water out of the tank. Well, I'm going to suck up one of my little gobies in there. I've got to be careful that they're tiny little fish. You can hardly see them. And without any kind of restrictions on this vinyl hose that I use, you can quite easily suck small fish up there. I've done it plenty of times in the past. So whenever I do a water change like this, I always let the bucket sit. I don't go right in the other room and dump it directly into the toilet. I definitely make sure I hang on to the water for a day or two, and I use my flashlight and I shine it in there. In this case, the water is fairly clean. There's no dark gravel at the bottom. I'm not gravel vacuuming, so there's not going to be a bunch of muck and scum or anything. It'll be easy enough to just glance in there and see if I've got any little fish. But I don't know if you can see that little goby right there. But you can see how easily, right by the end of the thing, I could just suck that right up into this hose without it having a chance if it got close enough. So Instant Ocean, which is the brand of marine salts I use when you're doing brackish water, you have to use marine salts, not aquarium salt. And I use the Instant Ocean brand. It's a budget brand, but it's good enough that most of the professionals I know that use, marine salts use the Instant Ocean without any hesitation at all. So it's a good, high quality brand. And they claim that you can use it instantly. You can basically just mix up a batch. You're never supposed to mix it up in the tank, of course. But in theory, you can mix up a bucket of salt water and then put it right in your tank and have it ready to go. And I have done that on many occasions over the years when I've been a little less prepared for a water change. But generally, I keep a 5-gallon bucket in the other room pre-mixed. So the routine is basically what we're doing here. I go ahead and draw 5 gallons out. And then I'm going to go in the other room and grab my reservoir bucket. And then I'll simply replace that 5 gallons with 5 gallons of fresh water. Now, this container also has some black substrate that got pulled out of this tank on a previous water change. Just as you saw me remove some of that red cyanobacteria from the bottom. And it sucks up a little bit of the gravel with it. I clean that gravel off, I sterilize it, I treat it with isopropyl alcohol and or hydrogen peroxide. I let it dry out, I rinse it out thoroughly, and when it's ready to go back in the tank, I just go ahead and pour it back in the tank. That way I don't gradually lose all of my substrate. You know, each water change, if you remove a tablespoon of substrate, it's only so long before you don't have any substrate left in the tank. And I use the Eco-Complete, which is a planted substrate. I don't really need it for this tank, but I really like the way it looks, so I use it anyway. I'll put a link to that down below. But it's made by Carib Sea, and it's a really good substrate. Not only does it work well for a planted tank, it works well for being an active part of your tank as far as the biological filtration. And I'm not talking about any kind of special biological filtration like live rocks. But if you've got gravel in even a freshwater tank, you know, that gravel acts as part of your biofiltration. Now, the shape of the gravel, the type of the gravel, the water circulation, what kind of lighting you have on the tank, all these things are going to play a factor in how effectively your gravel is going to help act as a biofilter. But this gravel is specifically designed to also help as a biofilter. So it really, really is a good substrate. I really like it a lot. And again, even in these tanks where I don't really have a need for a planted substrate, so to speak, I still use it anyway. And again, if nothing else, I just really like the way it looks. It's bimodal, so it's got really fine, small, sandy grains in it. And then it's got large, chunkier, more gravel-like grains. And over time, they separate out. The sand sort of settles to the bottom, and the larger grains make their way to the top. And this is all part of how it's supposed to work. It allows for anaerobic bacterial breakdown in the lower layers where the water can't really circulate through the thick sand, yet the circulating water can carry oxygen through the upper portions of it where it's a larger, more porous gravel, and that helps part of the aerobic part of the oxidation in your tank. So good stuff all the way around. And it actually looks like I've got a little bit of salt left in the bottom here that didn't thoroughly mix up, so I'm going to pour the water back and forth a few times, and it'll get all that last little bit of salt suspended. So the next couple of jugs of water I put in there, you're probably going to see some white stuff swirling around with it. And that's a little bit of the mineral salts that are still at the bottom of my bucket. Last time I filled my reservoir back up, I just put the salt in and then I just filled the bucket with water. I didn't, stand there and stir it until all the salt was dissolved and all that. I just kind of assumed over time that that salt would dissolve away and I would not have that little bit of physical salt left in the bottom of the bucket. That's interesting. And not going to really hurt anything. I'm not too concerned about it. And that's pretty much it. All I'll do after that is wipe the glass down. Now this filter, or this tank, has a canister filter on it and a really low bioload. I know it's got sort of a big bioload because Butterbean's such a messy eater and putting all these snails in the tank and everything. It really does get a lot of organics thrown in the tank. But it's got a few shrimp, a few little tiny gobies, 2 mollies, and that puffer in a 40-gallon tank. So that canister filter in there is not really getting overworked. And I don't change it very often. So this is pretty much a typical water change. Keeping the glass clean from the salt water is the more challenging part on this tank. So that's it, everybody. Job done. That was a basic water change for Butterbean's tank. Like I said, we don't really mess with the filter more often than not. And I'm not doing a multi-bucket. Sometimes I will do 2 buckets. I'll do 10 gallons out and 10 gallons back in. And on those occasions, I do mix a bucket and then put it right in. The first bucket is pre-mixed and it's been sitting for a day or two. But after I do that, I've only got the 1 5-gallon bucket as a reservoir. So if I do a full 10-gallon water change, the full 25% water change, which I do on occasion, the second bucket I do mix up right then and there and then add that to the tank. And again, I've never had any issues with it. And I've likewise never had any issues with throwing those last little grains of salt that go in there. Again, I don't recommend mixing it in the tank. That's never a good idea. But if you throw in those last few little white grains that don't quite get dissolved when you're mixing it up, I don't think that's a big deal in a brackish aquarium. I'm not talking about a marine tank or whatever. If you got a reef tank or whatever, doesn't apply to you. This is talking about a brackish aquarium where the fish are very, very flexible. You know, they can bounce around through salinities much more rapidly than other animals do, so not too worried about it. Anyway, I got to get on with my evening. Got other stuff I got to get done, but I did want to share at least a little bit of my fish room time with everybody tonight. So that was my big fish room time. It's on to feeding everybody, and then off to go get my own dinner. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. You never know what you're going to get with me. Sometimes it's this. Sometimes it's a little more substance to it, but you never know. Anyway, you want to make sure you're subscribed, and that way you won't miss it. Don't forget, of course, this is my 40-gallon brackish tank, house of the world-famous Butterbean. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.